All right, we are back. We were just talking about Facebook. You probably heard that, but talking about the changing world of media. I never thought I'd be on Facebook, and I am. But moving on, or back, I should say, to what happened at Fox 61 and the Hartford Courant this past week. A lot of folks at other TV stations are speculating. They're asking us, what does this mean? Are you worried about your jobs? I have to say, we had a meeting with our general manager, who, by the way, I did ask to come on the show. He politely declined, but gave me, the blessing to do this segment, said, go ahead, talk about it. We had a meeting, and he said, you know, they're doing everything they can to save our jobs. Things look good, and that it could be maybe one day Sam Zell could be perceived as a brilliant move by declaring this Chapter 11 bankruptcy because it's protecting what assets we have. What would you say about this, Rich? This seems to be your forte.
I think this, I think some folks get confused about Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It doesn't mean the business is closing. They're just giving the business time and space to figure out a plan and keep the creditors, you know, at bay. Just say, okay, we don't understand we're in trouble, but we have a going concern. We think this will continue to be a going concern. We just need some time and space to figure out how we're going to take the next step. So Chapter 11 isn't in and of itself a bad move. Well, in this case, what it just shows is just how dire the situation is overall, but it doesn't mean it's over.
But if you don't have innovative thinking and creative thinking, then all you're doing is prolonging the agony.
Well, I have friends that work at Channel 8 and WTNH in the market, and I also have friends that work at NBC out in L.A., and they say that it's a bloodbath. The amount of executives walking around with boxes that are leaving. My friend's a lawyer at NBC. She says that she's never seen it in her life. And I have friends at Channel 8 that said 10 people have been offered an early retirement package, and if they don't, they're starting layoffs. So one thing I will say in defense of our company, and of course, it's not that I'm doing this just to defend my job, but I truly believe it, that they're doing this so that they do not have to have layoffs. And so far, we have not. We're expanding.
Yeah, and then the other thing, you just have to look at the deal that Sam Zell inherited. The newspapers are still making a little bit of money and television making not as much, and you do have to adhere and listen to your shareholders, but it's the servicing of the debt. It's a lot of money that Sam Zell inherited when he purchased the Tribune that really is causing some of the distress that the company is facing right now.
If you had to put it in layman's term, Rich, since this is your specialty, to our viewers out there, what this means, how would you explain it?
This should be invisible to the viewer. The viewer is still going to see Fox 61, still going to see Shelley, still going to see, you know, the news, 10, 11, 12, whatever. You guys do so many programs now. You know, it's going to see the weather, sports with Rick Capola.
The real story.
It's the real story. I hope everyone watches now, becomes, you know, habitual watchers. That's right, and which they will. Now, it will show up in certain areas like the Hartford Courant if they do have to lay off more people, because the reporting will suffer. If you don't have boots on the ground, you're not going to get the stories that you need to get. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about losing more boots on the ground, losing more reporters' notebooks on the street, because that's a vital part of our democracy.
Well, that would be, that's what I think the biggest tragedy out of all of this would be if, Lord forbid, something happens to the Courant. I have a lot of respect for the Courant and what you guys do in journalism as a whole, and that is my biggest fear. What's the mood like at the Courant?
Well, you know, we're journalists, so we're all realists, so we know what's happening, but it's not just here at the Courant. LA Times, New York Times, Baltimore Sun, you've had thousands of journalists laid off. My concern is you have so many journalists now on the beach, it's got to affect the quality of journalism long term.
Rick, we were talking quickly. Well, you can, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we were talking about the other two papers that are also on the line, the New Britain Herald,
and the Bristol Press.
And the Bristol Press, yes. And they're going to close January 12th.
Probably, if there's
not an owner.
Right, their corporate parent, the JRC, they are basically already in bankruptcy proceedings because of the heavy debt load that they haven't been able to pay off. They decided that 11, 12 weeklies in Connecticut and those 2 daily newspapers in Bristol, New Britain may go under if a buyer isn't found. I haven't heard, I've been kind of following this pretty closely, and I haven't heard, despite the big legislative meeting last week about a potential buyer, I haven't really heard anything of
who's going to buy the paper for $1 million during these days? Is that they're asking, or $1 billion, I should say?
I think we could probably reach in our own pockets right now and pull out our credit cards and be able to buy the Bristol Press.
So you think
have a high credit limit.
I have a, well, first of all, I have excellent credit. I always brag about that, but you're saying you think those papers are dead.
Yeah.
What does this do for those communities?
Well, I think the papers, if someone wants to buy the entity and move them online, I think that they could be a very viable operation in both those.
Okay, that's a good idea, but what happens if that doesn't happen, gentlemen?
I think you lose some cachet. If indeed the papers close and they don't go online, when you have a city with no paper, no information, even an online entity. There's a certain cachet you have when you have a vibrant information outlet in your town. And just keeping accountability for public officials, corruption that's going on here in Connecticut, so much corruption.
But I
I
have
think
to
we
say-
lose that.
That doesn't stop because it's not being printed through a newspaper stand. That
Yeah, but I'll
doesn't
say this
stop.
though, but if you have more journalists on the beach, you can have quality journalism, but you lose the depth of quality journalism when you have thousands of journalists on the beach not working.
I have to tell you, and I agree with the corruption, what's happening out in Illinois makes what happened here. We look like a little bunch of pollywogs or something, don't you think, compared to that?
Yeah,
Unbelievable. And the Times Tribune, we'll see what happens there too, but something that will be reported.